There are moments in this life when the silence is deafening, not because nothing is happening, but because justice has yet to speak. You walked through those moments, didn't you? You endured wounds that never bled, betrayals that were never acknowledged, and pain so invisible to others that you questioned your own sanity. They smiled while you wept. They laughed while you crumbled. And in their eyes, it seemed as though they had won, as if their cruelty would go unanswered, as if the universe had turned its face away from you and let injustice reign. But hear this and hold it close. Just because the punishment is delayed doesn't mean it is denied. Just because heaven is quiet doesn't mean it is blind. The universe is not indifferent to pain. It is not forgetful of the suffering you endured. The laws that hold the stars in place are the same laws that govern justice. What is sown will be reaped, and every tear you cried in silence was a seed planted into divine memory. You see, time does not erase truth, it reveals it. And in due time, everything done in darkness comes into the light. The universe has a perfect memory, not one wound overlooked, not one act of cruelty dismissed. Those who caused your pain thought they were clever. They thought no one saw, no one would ever know, but the universe was watching. God was taking notes. And now, justice is stirring. It's not coming with noise or warning, it's coming with purpose. There is a sacred law written into the fabric of all creation. Whatever energy is released into the world, be it love or cruelty, will return to its source, multiplied. They mocked you when you were weak, they broke you when you were open, and they thought the silence that followed was proof of your defeat. But in truth, it was the calm before their consequence. Justice doesn't always come when we want it. That is why it's divine. It waits until the heart of the offender has grown proud, until they've begun to believe that they've escaped, and then like a tide it returns, not to destroy, but to balance. The pain they caused you wasn't lost. It was being preserved, transformed into a lesson that only life itself can teach. And now, the universe is delivering the very pain they once gave, only this time it has direction. It is not chaos, it is correction. Think of the tree. Though it stands silent for years, its roots stretch and its branches grow. It is slow, but it is sure, and so is the hand of justice. What they did to you did not vanish into thin air. It settled into the soil of time and is now rising back, not as revenge, but as righteousness. Let me ask you, have you felt the shift lately? A strange peace, a gentle knowing, a quiet confidence that something is changing. That's not just healing, that's justice, awakening. What was taken will be restored. What was broken will be rebuilt. But more importantly, what was hidden will be revealed. And you, yes you, who walked through fire without applause, who endured betrayal without bitterness, who chose silence over vengeance, you are not forgotten. You are favored. Your name has been etched into the divine ledger, and heaven has scheduled your compensation. The same universe that watched you suffer is now orchestrating your vindication. Forgiveness was never weakness, it was wisdom. And because you didn't fight back in the same spirit they attacked you, the universe has decided to fight for you, not with hatred, but with balance, not with fury, but with undeniable truth. The justice coming isn't just to expose what they did, it's to elevate who you've become. So stay still, stay kind, stay humble, because the hand that lifts you now is not human, it is sacred. And the voices that once tried to destroy your name will soon whisper in awe of your rising. This is not your revenge, this is your reward. The universe keeps a record of every pain unseen by the world. There is a sacred comfort in knowing that no sorrow is ever wasted. While others may look upon you and dismiss your quiet suffering, the universe has never overlooked it. Your hidden tears, the pain you bore in silence, the heartbreak you carried while still offering kindness, these were never forgotten. In a world obsessed with appearances, many wear masks, and in their prideful ignorance, they inflict wounds without guilt. But what they forget is that this universe is not governed by men. It is ruled by divine law, and within that divine law is a sacred truth. Every action, every intention, every wound inflicted echoes into eternity. When someone wrongs you and walks away without remorse, the injustice burns like a fire that won't go out. You begin to question whether justice will ever arrive, but divine justice does not operate on our schedule. It flows through higher patterns. What man overlooks, the heavens record. What society excuses, the universe archives. Not a single tear rolls down your face without being noticed. Not a single betrayal goes unregistered in the divine memory of life. For the universe, like God, is not blind. It does not forget. It is watching not to punish hastily, but to ensure that when the time for justice comes, it will be complete and undeniable. It is a humbling thought that the same hands which hung the stars also cradle your pain. The same intelligence that fashioned galaxies has noticed the small injustices you endured when no one else did. The friend who lied about you, the partner who manipulated your trust, the family member who wounded you with words sharp as blades. You didn't retaliate, you didn't broadcast your suffering, and yet even in silence, your soul cried out, and the universe heard. Many believe that justice must be seen, immediately to be real, but the greatest acts of justice are often invisible at first. Like seeds buried in the soil, the response takes time, and while others assumed your silence meant defeat, the truth is your silence was strength. Your endurance was testimony, and heaven was taking notes. It is not only what people do to you that matters, but how you respond, because your dignity in the face of cruelty is not forgotten. It becomes the very reason why divine justice must return in your favor. When we speak of the universe keeping records, we are not invoking superstition or myth. We are speaking of the deeply rooted spiritual truth that God sees what others miss, and He keeps perfect records, not out of vengeance, but because every story must reach its rightful conclusion. When someone shatters a soul and walks away without repentance, they assume the past is erased. But the pain lingers, and that lingering pain becomes the evidence justice will later use. So do not be disheartened. Every hurt you bore without recognition is not buried. It is stored. And when the scales of life begin to tip, you will see that you were never forgotten. Not by the universe, not by God, and certainly not by the spiritual laws that govern this life. Time does not forget. It nurtures the seed of justice. There is something majestic about time when it is allowed to work unhindered. To the impatient soul, time feels cruel, slow, indifferent. But to the wise heart, time is a sculptor, carefully crafting justice into a form so undeniable even the guilty cannot escape it. You may have cried for years, wondering when or if justice would ever speak. You may have grown weary waiting for answers. But justice does not rush. It matures. Like a seed pressed deep into the earth, justice begins in silence, in darkness, unseen. But it is never inactive. The betrayal they handed you, the lie they told, the trust they broke, the pain they ignored, was a seed, but not just any seed. It was one sown into the spiritual soil of the universe, And time, like rain and sun, nurtures that seed into its full harvest. The longer it waits, the richer it becomes. The more silent the process, the more powerful the outcome. What they thought was forgotten was only growing roots, deep, patient roots. And when justice blooms, it doesn't come as a whisper, it comes as a reckoning. Those who caused you pain likely believe time erased their wrongs. They moved on, built lives, smiled in photos, surrounded themselves with people who only know their charm, not their cruelty. And for a while it feels like the past has been buried under success, applause, and distraction. But time is not an accomplice to injustice. It is a witness. And witnesses testify. In the appointed season, time reveals what has been hidden. Truth comes forward, masked lies unravel, and those who thought they had escaped are brought face to face with what they tried to forget. God uses time not to delay justice, but to perfect it. There are reasons you didn't see immediate vindication. You weren't ready to rise yet. They weren't ready to fall yet. The situation needed to ripen so that when justice arrived, it would leave no questions, no loopholes, no doubt. Because divine justice isn't just about correcting a wrong. It's about teaching the soul, refining the heart, and restoring the innocent. So don't resent the waiting, don't despise the silence. What feels like a delay is actually preparation. While you were healing, time was building the case. While you were growing, time was softening the ground so that your rise wouldn't just be restoration, it would be transformation. The universe has not been idle. It has been deliberate. And when the harvest comes, you'll see, time did not forget. It remembered everything. And it has been working on your behalf all along. What was meant to break you will be what elevates you. There is a paradox woven into the spiritual fabric of the universe. What was sent to destroy you becomes the very thing that raises you. The pain they caused was not an accident. The betrayal you faced, the slander you endured, the abandonment that hollowed your soul, none of these were without purpose. And yet, in the moment, it felt like the end. It felt like the final blow. You believed you were finished, that nothing good could come from such cruelty. But here lies the miracle. What they meant for harm, the universe is now shaping into your elevation. God does not waste suffering. When others use your trust as a weapon, when they aim their words like arrows to shatter your soul, it feels like they've stolen your future. But they haven't. They've only set the stage. The greater the fall, the higher the rise. The deeper the wound, the more powerful the healing. And your pain, though real, has become the very soil where transformation is born. Do you not see? The universe watched what they did. It saw how they smiled in your face and whispered behind your back. It saw how they used your kindness against you. But instead of allowing you to remain a victim, it began turning your wounds into wings. You started rising not because they helped you, but because they hurt you. And though they never intended to build you, that is exactly what they did. Every insult became a lesson. Every lie became a fire that refined you. And every loss became a door to something greater. Spiritual laws are not governed by human logic. What seems unfair often becomes divine strategy. The cross that was meant to humiliate became the symbol of glory. The prison that was meant to silence the prophets became the womb of revelation, and you, wounded, forgotten, betrayed, are not sinking. You are being lifted, and not just lifted from the pain, but lifted because of it. What they tried to use to bury you will be the very thing that draws others to witness your rising. The universe has a way of weaving justice into the most unexpected places. You may not see it yet, but your story is shifting. They tried to write your ending, but God took the pen back. And what was meant to break you has now become your platform. Your voice is stronger, your heart is wiser, your discernment is sharper. And all of it came through the valley of pain. They thought they were ending you, but they were preparing you. They thought they had won, but they unknowingly handed you the tools for victory. You're not rising in spite of the pain, you're rising because of it. And when your elevation comes, they'll wonder how you survived. But you'll know, it was never their favor that held you. It was grace, it was purpose, it was divine justice, transforming your pain into power. They thought silence was weakness, but it was power in disguise. To the unspiritual eye, silence looks like surrender. It looks like defeat. In a world that praises noise, reaction, and retaliation, silence is often misunderstood. But in the realm of spiritual warfare, silence is not the absence of power. It is the presence of it. When they hurt you and you didn't retaliate, they mistook your restraint for weakness. When you turned the other cheek, they assumed you were broken. When you walked away instead of fighting back, they believed they had silenced you. But what they failed to see is that your silence was never submission, it was strategy. The universe honors restraint. It exalts humility. When you chose to remain silent, you invited a higher force to speak for you. You allowed God to take your side. And He does not lose battles. Your silence became a sacred invitation for divine justice to move on your behalf, not with chaos, but with calculated timing. You were not inactive, you were trusting, and that trust is now bearing fruit. They expected you to fall apart. They wanted to see you rage, retaliate, or self-destruct. But you did not give them that satisfaction. Instead, you held your peace, even when it felt like a war inside your chest. That kind of strength is not visible to the world, but it shakes the heavens. It's the kind of strength that gets noticed by the universe, and when heaven notices, things begin to shift. Silence is the language of the spiritually mature. It is the decision to let truth rise on its own without dragging others down. It is the choice to let karma speak instead of using your voice to curse. And though you were mocked for staying quiet, your silence was doing more than anyone knew. It was building your case. Not in a court of human opinion, but in the courtroom of divine justice. And there, your silence was loud enough to awaken what the heavens had been waiting to release. Think of the lion before it strikes. It doesn't roar in rage, it crouches in silence, waiting, watching. Power under control. That was you. Your silence was not fear, it was preparation, it was wisdom. Because had you spoken, had you fought in your own strength, you may have lowered yourself to their level, but by choosing silence, you rose above. And now, the very power you entrusted to heaven is returning, stronger, clearer, and undeniable. They will learn what they refused to believe, that silence does not mean surrender, that quiet does not mean weak, and that those who choose dignity over drama are not losing. They are aligning with something eternal. You didn't need to shout. You didn't need to explain, because truth doesn't need defenders. It only needs time, and now that time has arrived, and your silence will speak louder than any scream ever could. Forgiveness was the door that invited divine justice. Forgiveness is often misunderstood as weakness. In a world that glorifies revenge and loud retaliation, to forgive appears passive, even foolish, and yet it is the very thing that shifts the course of justice. What they did to you hurt, there is no denying that. They broke something in you. They robbed you of peace, of stability, of trust. They violated the sacred. And when you had every right to fight back, to return the harm, to strike with the same bitterness, they expected you would. But you didn't. You chose the harder path. You chose forgiveness. Now, forgiveness does not mean forgetting, nor does it mean excusing the offense. Forgiveness is not saying what they did was okay. It's saying you're not going to carry their poison in your soul. You refuse to let their darkness breed more darkness in you, and in that moment of choice, you did something that opened the floodgates of heaven. You handed the matter over to the one who judges righteously. You released your right to revenge, not because they deserved mercy, but because you needed peace. And here lies the mystery. When you forgave, you didn't let them win. You invited a higher court into your situation. You summoned a justice that does not sleep. You aligned yourself with spiritual law. Because forgiveness is not the end of justice. It is the beginning of divine involvement. The moment you truly let go, you were no longer standing in the way. The universe, no longer restrained by your desire for personal revenge, began moving with precision. Heaven does not ignore injustice, but it often waits until the heart relinquishes its claim to vengeance. Why? Because when God steps in, He doesn't simply balance the scale. He redefines the story. Your forgiveness was not just a personal decision. It was a divine trigger. It was the moment the weight shifted. You rose above them, and in doing so, you qualified yourself for the justice that cannot be manipulated, bought, or avoided. What they did to you is not being ignored. It is being handled, not with the clumsy hands of man, but with the surgical precision of God. And your forgiveness made room for that. Many confuse justice with retaliation, but justice in its purest form is restoration, exposure, and alignment, and that can only come when the heart is free from vengeance. Your forgiveness freed your heart and invited heaven's hand. They may still be walking around believing they got away with it, but they have no idea what your forgiveness has set in motion. They don't know that your silence wasn't defeat, it was transfer. You gave the case to God, and now He is moving, not to hurt them out of spite, but to awaken them with truth, and in the process, to lift you beyond anything they ever tried to steal. Forgiveness was the key, not just to your peace, but to their reckoning. Because when you chose not to return the pain, the universe made a vow to return it for you, in the exact measure, with the exact truth, at the exact time. And now that time is near. The same energy they gave will return, multiplied. The universe is built on a law as ancient as light itself. What is given will return. This law is not superstition, it is order. Divine justice is not random, it operates with mathematical precision. When someone releases energy into the world, be it kindness, love, betrayal, or cruelty, that energy does not vanish, it circles, it lingers, and it finds its way back home. They thought their actions were isolated moments, that hurting you was a choice without consequence, that mocking your pain, exploiting your vulnerability, or turning others against you would disappear with time. But what they didn't understand is that the energy they released has been collecting interest, and now what they gave is returning, multiplied. When you were broken, when they watched you suffer without flinching, the heavens stood silent, not absent, silent. Because justice that moves too quickly may miss the deeper lesson, but justice that waits gathers strength. And now, what once seemed like a forgotten story is becoming a storm of return, not to destroy, but to balance. They spoke lies about you. Those words were not just vibrations in the air, they were seeds. And now the harvest is growing. They abandoned you in your need. That abandonment was not just a passing act, it was a spiritual transaction. And now the account must be reconciled. You see, the pain you carried didn't end with you. The universe absorbed it, and it doesn't just echo it back, it amplifies it. Not because you demanded revenge, but because spiritual balance requires it. They caused suffering without remorse, and now life is teaching them the weight of their choices, not out of cruelty, but out of divine necessity, because lessons unlearned in mercy must eventually be taught through consequence. Every betrayal they committed is now becoming a mirror, and in that mirror they will see the reflection of everything they denied. The same confusion they threw at you is now clouding their mind. The same abandonment they forced you to face is now visiting them in silence. The same humiliation they hoped would crush you is now haunting their reputation. It is not karma in the petty sense. It is cosmic correction. It is God ensuring that justice is not merely symbolic, but deeply experiential. That those who wounded the innocent will understand what it feels like to be wounded. That those who dismissed your cries will one day cry for help and find none. That those who sowed storms will be drenched by the same rain. And you don't have to lift a finger. Because what they gave, life is returning. What they sowed, life is multiplying. You are not rejoicing in their fall, but you are witnessing truth rise. You are seeing the invisible hand of heaven balance what no man could fix. The same energy they gave, the disregard, the cruelty, the manipulation, is now revisiting them, not by your will, but by divine design. And what was once their weapon is now their teacher. You will rise, not to shame them, but to show God's hand over your life. There is a distinct and holy difference between vengeance and vindication. The world often seeks to rise so it can boast, so it can say to the doubters, "Look at me now." But the soul touched by God seeks something greater, restoration. Not to shame those who hurt them, but to showcase the mercy, justice, and power of the one who lifted them. When they hurt you, they expected you to disappear. They believed that without their approval, you would crumble. They underestimated the God who walks with the wounded. They never saw the grace that surrounded you in silence. To them, you were just another soul they could crush and forget. But to heaven, you were marked, chosen, set apart. What's coming to your life isn't merely compensation, it is revelation. It is God revealing to you and to the world that He was present in every part of the story, that He didn't abandon you when they did, that He didn't look away when they laughed, that He didn't ignore your tears when you cried behind closed doors. God took notes. Heaven kept receipts. And now, as divine justice begins to unfold, it will be unmistakably clear that your elevation was not man-made, it was heaven-born. You will rise, but not with bitterness. That is not your nature. You've been through too much to let your heart be poisoned now. No, your rising will be quiet, graceful, and powerful. It will not scream for attention. It will not mock those who mocked you. It will simply be. And in its being, it will shake the very assumptions of those who thought they understood your story. Because that's the thing about divine vindication. It doesn't need explanation. It speaks for itself. They'll look at you and wonder how you survived, how you thrived, how you're glowing with peace when they left you in pieces. And the only answer will be God. That's it, not revenge, not manipulation, not performance, just God. He turned the wounds into wisdom. He turned the rejection into redirection. And now, as you walk into rooms that once were closed to you, as your name is mentioned in places your enemies tried to keep you from, you will know deep in your soul that this is not a reward for enduring pain. It is the fruit of choosing to trust. It will be tempting to look back, to point fingers, to say, "See, I told you." But the Spirit will whisper, "Keep walking." Because your destiny is not to entertain the past, it is to build a future that reflects the grace of the one who sustained you. You are not a trophy to be displayed, you are a testimony to be heard. Your rising will heal others. Those who are still in the valley, who still wonder if justice is real, will look at your life and find hope. They will see that pain doesn't have the final word, that betrayal doesn't cancel purpose, that silence doesn't mean defeat. You will become living proof that the universe, guided by the hand of God, remembers, responds, and restores. And those who hurt you, they will see it too, not because you flaunt it, but because truth cannot be hidden. They will watch you rise, not as a shadow of who you were, but as someone fully healed, fully aligned, fully favored. And the beauty of it all, you won't need them to acknowledge what they did, because your rise won't be about them, it will be about Him. You didn't survive to prove them wrong. You survived to prove that God was always right about you. So, to the one who was wounded in silence, who was left without apology, who endured cruelty without cause, know this: the universe never forgot. God never missed a tear. The pain they caused is not lost. It is returning. Not in anger, but in justice. Not to destroy, but to restore. Every tear you wept was seen. Every injustice you bore in silence was recorded. And now the time has come. Divine justice is no longer delayed. It is being released. You will not have to lift a hand. You will not have to defend your name, because the very hands that shape the stars are now lifting your life into full view. Let your heart rest. Let your soul breathe. What they gave is returning, but so is what you gave. Your kindness, your integrity, your forgiveness, your faith, all of it is returning too. Multiplied, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. You are not forgotten. You are not broken. You are not small. You are rising, and all of heaven is watching.